Hello, friends. This is Eli Gonzalez, best-selling ghostwriter, and I'm on my way home from training one of the largest publishers in the industry on ghostwriting and editing. And I shared some stuff with them that they thought was very valuable. So I figured if you're writing a book or considering to write a book, you would find this valuable as well. So specifically, in this video, I'm going to talk about the story arc. And as soon as I mention to you the story arc, you're going to say, oh my God, I know this. It's one of those things that we all know, but we don't pay attention to it. And when we're writing a book, when we don't follow it, it's foreign to us, to the reader, because we have been ingrained in how to receive stories, how to receive information ever since we were kids. Ever since we were read children's books or Bible stories, we've been introduced to the story arc. So let me get right into what it is and how to use it. Number one, we start with establishing normalcy. Now, you see this in every movie, in every good book, right? We get to see the protagonist's life. We get to see the family dynamic. We get to see how this person pals around with his barista, wherever they get their coffee from, banker, baker, whatever it is. But we get established with a period of normalcy. That way, when something happens, we can tell that it's a big deal. In a business book, it's pretty tricky on how to establish a period of normalcy. But what we like to do is, let's say it's a sales book, right? You should know your avatar and the 4 or 5 reasons why they're going to read your book, right? The solutions that they're looking for. So you can establish normalcy by letting them know that you know how much it stinks to work 30, 40, 50, 60 hours and not hit quota. You know how that elusive 6 figures has always been eluding them, or whatever it is. But you let them know that you understand what their normal life is like. So you establish normalcy for them, right? With the promise that if they follow your methodology, their life is going to get better. So that's normalcy. The next phase is the chance happening. This is where, in an action book, the hero's kids are abducted, the spouse is murdered, whatever it is, whatever thrusts the book into, or the movie into overdrive. So there's that chance happening. The chance happening in a book can be the promise that life is going to get better, right? Or a challenge that, I bet you're never going to understand or look at sales the same way again, right? After that chance happening in a romance novel is when the tall, dark, and handsome guy comes into the office and the woman swoons, right? Or vice versa, however you want to look at it. After the chance happening comes the journey, and this is by far the bulk of the movie, the bulk of the book. And here is where the comic relief is entered into films and such. This is when, if you're writing a fiction novel, you can introduce some very, very cool characters. Maybe I like to add people with like a lisp or a southern draw or some sort of accent. Somebody that's going to be fun to read for the reader, that just by looking at the dialogue, you know that this person's talking. Now, in a business book, you establish your credibility in the first, second or third chapter. And here is when, in the journey part, you start to bring in studies, university studies, Harvard studies, other authors that validate your methodology, right? So that's during the journey. That's the biggest portion of the book. After that comes a setback. Here the hero challenges the villain. Villain seems to be a lot stronger. The hero has to retreat. Maybe some of his pals die, whatever. There's that setback, right? The woman in a romance novel makes a play for the guy and it goes horribly wrong. There's a setback, right? In a business book, it doesn't have to be very long. It can be a short chapter on how statistics say that 92% of people that read these motivational help self, sales, leadership type books never actually follow through with the methodology that they've been taught, right? So you establish a setback. After the setback comes the moment of truth. You know, Rocky's been training, but when that Eye of the Tiger music comes on, that's the moment of truth. That boy is all in, right? That's when, if you're writing a testimony, that's when you're all the way down and you're at rock bottom, and you say, okay, look, God, I need to change my life. That's when the prodigal son says, I'm going to go back to my father's house, hanging out with the pigs, stink, even if I have to be a servant, right? That's a moment of truth. After that moment of truth comes the crescendo, comes the payoff, the climax. You know, why did they spend 3 or 4 hours reading your book? You know, and even the boss fight. And I mentioned boss fight because even video games follow the story arc, because the video game makers understand that we are used to this, accustomed to this story arc. So there's the climax, the crescendo, the payoff. You know, your biggest secrets, your biggest tips, tricks, hacks, you know, is here. And if you're doing a movie, a romance movie, or an action movie, you can end it here. You know, protagonist grabs the girl, explosions in the background, he says a one-liner, gives her a kiss, up come the credits. We've seen that over and over and over again. In a romance movie, you know, they finally kiss, you know, life is great, boom, it ends right there. In a book, we want more. If it's not a series, we like it all tied up in a neat little bow for us, right? So we can't end it there at that crescendo moment. So the last portion is establishing the new normal. Remember, we started with the normal. Now it's the new normal. The director, Peter Jackson, who did the Lord of the Rings trilogies, and I'm really going to show how much of a nerd I am, but I am a writer, so I am. Being a nerd is kind of par for the course. So in the third book, Return of the King, the hobbits go back to the Shire, and there's 25 minutes of new normal, but you can't get away from it, right? So the hobbits go back to the Shire. They're back at their own pub. Samwise Gamgee becomes the mayor. Frodo and Bilbo leave with the elves, but we see what happened after the whole journey, and we see how their lives are there. If it's a romance book, you know, you don't want to end it there and leave us hanging. Maybe the last chapter could be 25 years later. They're going to pick up their daughter who just graduated from college. So now we know that they spent a lifetime together. In a book, the new normal could be paint the picture for them how their lives is going to be if they follow your methodology. So in a nutshell, I hope you can see me. That is the story arc. And when you do not use the story arc, it just feels unfamiliar. Your book can be very well written, but if it's not constructed, if the information isn't disseminated to the reader in the way that we are accustomed to receiving information, to receiving story, then we might misconstrue it as bad writing when actually it's bad tempo, it's bad cadence. Okay, so hopefully this was eye-opening or informative and of value to you. If so, or if not, leave a comment. Let's start a conversation. This is Eli Gonzalez with some ghostwriting tips for you, and take care.